Welcome to my new podcast, Wired to Win. I'm Layan, and in this episode, we're tackling those awkward, uncomfortable moments at work. The ones that make you wish you could disappear. I'll share powerful phrases and practical tips to help you stay confident, professional, and composed, no matter how tense things get. Let's turn tough situations into moments you can own. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've all been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That moment when your perfectly professional day suddenly goes sideways.
Definitely.
Maybe it's an email you sent to the wrong person, or, a conversation you overheard that you really shouldn't have.
Or being put on the spot in a meeting with zero warning.
Exactly. The workplace. It's a minefield sometimes, full of unexpected, awkward, and downright difficult situations that are definitely not in the job description.
It absolutely is. And those moments, they can leave you feeling exposed, maybe unprofessional, or just struggling for the right words at the worst possible time.
Yeah, totally scrambling.
They really test not just your skills, but your ability to navigate, human dynamics under pressure.
And that's why we're diving into Perfect Phrases for Dealing with Difficult Situations at Work by Susan F. Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
This book, it's positioned not just as a list of things to say, but more like a strategic guide, right? To help you handle those moments with more confidence, more control.
Yeah, it moves beyond that general advice like, oh, just be professional. It gives you specific language, actual frameworks for a whole range of common challenges.
From the small stuff to the really big conflicts.
Exactly. Minor gaffes all the way up to major clashes.
So our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the most powerful insights, the most actionable strategies from this book.
Right.
We want to give you, our listener, the tools and maybe crucially the language to feel prepared, professional, and, effective, even when the unexpected hits.
We'll be covering a lot. Everything from those sort of facepalm, embarrassing moments to, high-stakes financial issues and navigating tricky personal dynamics at work.
Okay, so where do we even start? How does the book suggest we approach these messy situations? Because it can feel really overwhelming in the moment.
Well, yeah, and that's key. Before it even gives you any specific phrases, the book insists you need a strategy. You can't just react instinctively.
Especially when emotions are high, right?
Precisely. So it lays out what it calls the 7 determining factors. Thinking through these before you speak or act is like the foundation.
Okay, so a strategic blueprint before you even open the phrase book. Got it.
Yeah.
What are these 7 factors we absolutely need to consider?
First, and this is critical, is damage. You need to assess the actual impact. Is this a tiny slip-up or a, significant problem?
Okay.
The book points out that overreacting to something small can actually be just as damaging as underreacting to something major.
So matching the scale of your reaction to the scale of the problem. Makes sense. What's next?
Corporate personal culture. Every workplace is different, right? It has its own norms.
Sure.
Does this environment tolerate certain things? Or condemn them? Are you dealing with this on your own turf where you know the rules? Or maybe somewhere else, like a client's office, where things might be different. Your approach has to fit the culture.
Context really matters. Okay, and then who's the right person to even talk to about this?
That's the appropriate person. And it's not always the obvious one, not always the person directly involved. Sometimes maybe going to your manager or HR or even a trusted colleague first is actually the most strategic move. It depends on the situation and, crucially, what you want to achieve.
And when? When is the right time to respond?
Appropriate timing. That's huge. Do you need to jump in immediately? Or is it better to pause, maybe gather more info, think it through, and then formulate a response?
Or sometimes, do nothing.
The book even suggests that. Sometimes if the damage is really minimal, pretending it never happened is the most effective response.
Okay. Like maybe tripping on your way to the podium. Just get up and keep going.
Exactly like that. Perfect example. Factor number 5 is the vehicle for your message.
How you deliver it.
Yeah. How should you communicate? A quiet one-on-one chat, an email, a public announcement. Choosing the right channel really influences how your message lands and, if it gets documented.
Right. And email is definitely the vehicle you want if you need a record of something serious.
Precisely. Next up is personal style.
Okay.
Now, authenticity is generally good, but the book cautions against letting your natural tendencies, like if you're really conflict averse, lead you to a response that's actually counterproductive.
So you might need to push yourself a bit.
You might need to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It makes a specific note here, though. When legal issues are involved, just relying on your personality can be pretty risky.
That's a really good reminder. Professionalism sometimes means making a deliberate communication choice. So what's the final factor, the most crucial one?
The outcome you want. This is the big one. What do you specifically want the other person to think, feel, and do after you interact?
Okay.
Are you trying to fix a mistake, restore goodwill, get someone to change their behavior, stop gossip, prevent future problems? Knowing your desired outcome has to guide your entire response.
So the core framework is pause, think about the damage, the culture, who needs to know when, how you'll say it, maybe adjust for your own style, and most importantly, what result are you actually aiming for?
Yeah.
Then you pick your words.
That's it, exactly. It's all about being strategic, being intentional to get the right message to the right place for the best possible result, as the book puts it.
Okay, with that strategic map laid out, let's navigate some specific terrain. The book spends a good chunk of time on those really cringeworthy moments, right? The ones that make you wish the floor would swallow you whole.
Oh, yeah.
That chapter on embarrassing workplace moments sounds painfully relatable.
Deeply relatable. I mean, imagine sending a personal email, maybe something a bit too casual, or, revealing to the entire company list instead of just your friend.
Oof, yeah. What do you do?
Well, the book advises you first, assess the potential damage. How bad could this be for your professional relationships? For your work?
Okay. And if there is potential damage?
Acknowledge it quickly. Apologize. Ask for discretion. The book gives a few options, from a simple, sorry for sending you an email intended for my own.
Which forward.
Or you could acknowledge the wide distribution with a bit of humor, maybe like, just thought I'd share a personal message with all of my 100 closest personal friends. Sometimes that can work.
Diffuse it a little.
Exactly. The key is often just owning it quickly and asking people to, move on, delete it and forget it.
A little self-deprecation can definitely disarm people. Okay, what about proposal mix-ups? Like sending a client a proposal that accidentally includes details meant for a different client. That sounds bad.
That's a professional slip-up for sure. The book suggests apologizing immediately. Maybe blame a process error like a template issue rather than pointing fingers unless it's really necessary.
Okay.
But the crucial step, the really smart move, is to quickly pivot and highlight a specific advantage the current client gets in their correct proposal.
Turn it around.
Yeah. Something like, I apologize. A detail from another project was mistakenly included due to a formatting error. Please disregard section 3. Actually, what's specifically relevant to your unique needs is on page 7, detailing the additional reporting services we're including for you at no extra expense.
Turning the mistake into a chance to reinforce their value. That's clever. Okay, what about overhearing someone criticize you? It stings.
It absolutely does. The book acknowledges that this hurts. And you have options, but one is to address it directly, though maybe not, emotionally charged.
How would that sound?
Well, the book suggests trying to get precise information first. You could approach them and say something like, excuse me, when you were in that meeting earlier, I happened to overhear my name mentioned. Did you have something you'd like to discuss with me directly?
Wow, that's very direct. Puts them on the spot.
It does. Or if you need to document it, maybe it's part of a pattern or it feels like it could harm your reputation, the book recommends using email. Be specific.
Create a record.
Exactly. I overheard you and other person talking about me in the cafeteria yesterday. At that time, you said that I was specific criticism. I'd like to schedule a time to address this with you. Creating that paper trail can be really important.
That feels strategically different from just confronting them in the heat of the moment. It brings us back to those factors. Vehicle and outcome. Documentation protects you.
Precisely. And the book also covers the flip side. You criticizing someone and they overhear it, that's labeled a king-size embarrassment.
Oh, the absolute worst. How do you even begin to recover from that?
The advice is to emphasize the subject directly and quickly. Hi, I think you may have overheard something I said earlier, and I'd really like to clear the air.
Okay, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. Then explain your comments. Maybe you were just venting about pressure, brainstorming aloud, or maybe you acknowledge you really should have spoken to them directly first.
Oh, own it.
Right. Like, just so you know, sometimes I vent when project pressures get high, and that conversation was really just me blowing off steam. I realize now I should have brought my concerns directly to you instead.
And the book has a tip about where not to vent, right?
Yes. The quick tip reminds us that, look, workplace talk happens, but discretion and privacy are key. Avoid the cafeteria, avoid the water cooler for those kinds of conversations. Keep it private.
Okay. Acknowledge, explain the context, express regret you didn't handle it better. Got it. Let's talk about being confidently wrong in public. You state something as fact, definitively, and then someone corrects you. Mortifying.
It can feel that way, but the book frames it as a chance to actually show grace and, a willingness to learn.
Oh.
First, thank the person for the correction. Something simple like, thanks for catching that. You're absolutely right.
Just a simple thank you. Is that enough?
Often, yes. But you could follow up by asking where you can learn more. Thanks for that correction. Do you know where I could find more information on that? It shows you're open to learning and improving, not defensive.
Okay.
And if you need to correct a mistake in writing, say in a report that's already gone out, the book suggests acknowledging the insight, maybe while highlighting a benefit that comes from the correction.
Like what?
Like, colleague's name rightfully pointed out that the data point on page 5 was incorrect. Fortunately, correcting this actually means we can now offer you even more accurate projections for next quarter.
Again, turning the correction into a positive outcome somehow.
Yeah.
What about providing wrong facts in a more formal setting, like a big presentation or a critical report?
That's more serious, obviously, because it hits your credibility. The book advises expressing genuine embarrassment and maybe some surprise.
How would that sound?
I am genuinely embarrassed and perplexed about how that error occurred. I double-checked my sources, and you're absolutely right, that data point is incorrect. I apologize for that oversight.
And then just apologize.
No, crucially, you then state how you will redeem yourself or compensate for any damage. For a client, maybe it's offering a discount or a free service related to the error. Internally, it might be explaining the new checking process you've implemented to prevent it from happening again.
The book has that cautionary quick tip about over-apologizing here, doesn't it? Especially if you could get legal.
Yes, that's vital, especially if the mistake could have legal or financial liability implications. Don't admit fault or express regret in a way that could be used against you or the company. Focus on correcting the information and outlining preventative steps.
Right.
The example given about the truck driver case, where the company's really profuse apology was used against them in court, is a stark reminder of that danger.
Yeah, that makes sense. Apologize for the mistake itself, but don't phrase it in a way that creates bigger problems down the line.
Okay. And what about those purely accidental physical omissions? A sudden loud cough, maybe a burp, or, well, yes. The book notes, rather dryly, that the workplace sometimes expects us to be professional, discreet, and overall non-human.
Doesn't it just?
For these truly accidental physical moments, the suggested strategy is often the simplest. Pretend it never happened. Unless it's really disruptive or part of an ongoing health issue you need to address, just move on. Don't draw attention to it.
The least awkward way to handle pure awkwardness. Okay. And finally, in this section, calling someone by the wrong name or misspelling it, especially in email, common mistake.
Very common, and often feels like a bigger deal to us than it is to them, but it's worth correcting. For in-person, a quick, "Oh, I'm sorry, you must remind me of someone with that name," can work.
No.
Or maybe, "I'm terrible with names sometimes, but I remember our conversation about X perfectly." For email, a simple reply. "My apologies. I should have double-checked the spelling. Thanks for letting me know."
Not asking for pronunciation.
The book notes that asking for the correct pronunciation actually shows respect, courtesy, and care, which can definitely smooth over a name mistake.
Okay. So for embarrassing moments, the pattern seems to be quick acknowledgement, manage the fallout, maybe use humor or deflection sometimes, but be direct and document when it touches on relationships or professional standing.
It's a good summary. And moving from the awkward to the intense, the book then shifts gears to situations where you're suddenly in the spotlight or dealing with pressure cookers.
High-stress moments, urgent demands, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like being suddenly asked to present in a meeting with, 5 minutes notice.
Precisely. The book actually suggests having internal perfect phrases for yourself in that moment, just to manage your own anxiety.
Like what? Talking to yourself.
Kind of. Things like, "Okay, I can do this," or asking yourself, right, what are the 3 most important things I absolutely need to convey right now, just to focus?
A quick mindset check first.
Yeah, okay.
Then how do you actually manage that unexpected session?
Quickly scope your territory, decide what you can realistically cover in the time you have. Set some ground rules maybe, like when you'll take questions.
And if you don't have handouts or anything prepared,
Explain their value, promise to send them right after the meeting, and maybe offer a small bonus like a relevant case study or article link. And then, crucially, you must follow up afterward and deliver what you promised.
so you acknowledge the lack of prep, but show you're still on top of getting them the necessary information. Okay. What if you are leading a meeting, maybe on a difficult topic, and it becomes clear you're just not going to finish on time?
You've got two main choices. Either really push to get through the absolute most critical points, or clearly set expectations for continuing later.
How do you keep people engaged if time's running out?
You could say something like, okay, everyone, we only have about 10 minutes left, and I still have two crucial points I really don't want you to miss before we wrap up.
And if you need to reconvene?
Be clear. It's clear we need more time to cover everything thoroughly. Let's mark our calendars now to continue this discussion next week, same time, same place. The book adds a quick tip, offers some flexibility if people absolutely have to leave, but make sure they know how to get the information they missed.
Right, balancing getting the job done with respecting people's schedules.
Yeah.
What about the really tough job of delivering bad news to an audience, whether that's your team, a whole department, or even clients?
You need to set a tone. Serious, yes, but not overly gloomy or dramatic. Provide the necessary details, but keep them limited. Don't dwell endlessly on the negatives.
Focus on what they need to know.
Exactly. And clearly state what this news means for them or what their role is moving forward. A subject line for an email might be direct, but not, terrifying. Update regarding recent changes.
And the message itself.
Could start with something like, we have 3 issues that have recently cropped up that require our immediate attention and adjustment. You want to sound transparent, but also in control.
Okay, and what if there's a company scandal? You might not be involved, but suddenly you're having to address it, maybe in a meeting or with a client. You're representing the company.
Yeah, that's tough. The key is to project composure and a willingness to address it, but without getting defensive. Thank them for asking, maybe.
Right.
Thanks for bringing this up. I understand why you're concerned about the news. Then, provide an objective, unbiased impression based only on known facts, not speculation or rumors. Reiterate respect for the company, focus on resilience, or mention positive changes being made.
What should you avoid saying?
Avoid expressing personal concern or outrage. Definitely avoid apologizing for the scandal itself unless you're specifically authorized to, and don't criticize anyone involved, internally or externally. Phrases like, the company is focusing on how we can learn from this and move forward, or new procedures like X are being implemented to address this issue directly.
Got it. Stay factual, focus on process and future. What if the media calls you about a company issue or some industry problem?
Oh, the book is very clear on this. Unless you are the designated PR spokesperson, your job is to politely and strategically redirect them.
How?
Simply state, you really need to talk to our PR department about that. If they persist, calmly repeat it. I'm sorry, but as I mentioned, you'll need to contact name department in our press room for any official comment.
And if, unlikely as it sounds, you do agree to an interview and face really tough questions,
Have your own no-go phrases ready. Things like, I'm not in a position to speak to that, or a simple, firm, no comment, next question, please.
delegate to the experts, basically. Okay, what if you're the designated point person for a problem, people are coming to you, but you genuinely don't have the answers yet?
You still need to project control and capability. You can pass the buck, but do it helpfully, not dismissively. The best person for you to talk to about the technical details of that is actually Neyman Engineering. I'd be happy to connect you both.
Or if you need to find the answer yourself.
Promise to get the information and, crucially, follow up. Specify when and how. Use we to show you're part of the solution-finding team. Okay, let me look into that for you right away. We'll get you an answer by the end of the day via email.
And if the person contacting you is already upset?
Let them vent first. Listen actively. Then use a phrase like, thank you for contacting me. I understand this is incredibly frustrating, and I want to assure you we can figure this out. Can you walk me through exactly what happened from your perspective?
So for these spotlight moments, it's about managing yourself first, then being clear, concise, redirecting when needed, and always following up.
Exactly. Now let's shift to the pressure cookers, those situations with urgent demands and really tight deadlines. The overall approach here needs to be about speed and precision.
Right, like those urgent emails demanding action now. The book contrasts effective subject lines like send travel form NW or project deadline moved to 2:00 p.m. with vague ones that get ignored.
Yes, cut the fluff in the body too. State exactly what's needed, who needs to provide it, and by precisely when. No ambiguity.
What about missing information that's holding everything up?
Document the problem clearly. State its impact. Because we don't have the final specs, production is on hold. And clearly state what's required and from whom. We need the final approved specs from the design team by 4:00 p.m. today.
Okay. What if it's your own team that's moving too slowly on something critical? How do you light a fire under them effectively?
The book offers a couple of really powerful framing strategies here. One is the if we don't then approach. It emphasizes the negative consequences.
Give me an example.
Okay, team, if we don't finalize this design by end of day tomorrow, then we risk missing our allocated production slot, which pushes the entire product launch back by a month.
Ouch. Okay. What's the other strategy?
The flip side, the so we must approach. This focuses on the desired positive outcome. So we can hit our target launch date and capture that early market share. We absolutely must approve these final specifications by lunchtime today.
Using consequences or benefits to create urgency. Makes sense. How do you explain having to derail or delay a project for a customer because of unexpected issues on your end?
You need to explain the delay, but avoid overly negative or apologetic language that just sounds like making excuses. Focus instead on the positive outcome for the client once the issue is resolved.
How would that sound?
Instead of we're delayed because our system crashed, try something like you will be able to fully utilize the enhanced reporting features once we complete these necessary system repairs, which we anticipate finishing by Friday.
And maybe offer something.
Yes, potentially offer compensation. Mention it clearly, both in your initial contact and maybe in a follow-up. Be specific about what's being offered or deducted from their bill.
Offering something tangible can definitely soften the blow. Okay, lastly, in this pressure section, how do you communicate new, maybe difficult requirements, like a sudden policy change or a new legal mandate that affects your team or clients?
Announce it clearly and state precisely what actions must be taken now. No beating around the bush. Effective immediately, all staff must adhere to the following updated security protocols. List specifics. Then, try to address potential concerns proactively by mentioning support or resources available.
What about pushback? People might resist change.
Acknowledge the difficulty, but frame it as something that will become routine. I understand this seems complicated at first, but you'll get used to the new system quickly, and mandatory training sessions are scheduled for next week.
And if you're the one receiving these new rules?
The book reminds you to ask clear, specific questions if you're uncertain about how these changes impact your work or your clients. Don't just guess. Ask, what should I do if X happens under the new policy? Or how does this affect ongoing project Y?
Okay, so for pressure situations, urgency, clarity, precision, often framing actions in terms of outcomes, positive or negative. Got it.
Exactly. Now let's turn to arguably the most sensitive areas the book covers. Personal tragedies that impact work, and those tricky relationship quagmires.
Yeah, this is where professionalism really meets raw human difficulty, isn't it? How do you handle acknowledging a colleague's serious illness, for example?
It's delicate. The advice is to express genuine sympathy immediately, if that feels appropriate for your relationship. Offer encouragement, but focus on their health and recovery, not dwelling on the illness itself.
What kind of phrases?
Maybe things like, I was so sorry to hear your news, but I know you're incredibly strong. Or if you hear good news, hearing about your positive progress is wonderful news. Focus on strength, hope, medical steps.
And offering help.
Offer support, but make it specific and actionable, not just a vague, let me know if you need anything. Try, if you need me to cover your morning check-ins while you're doing treatments, just let me know. Also, crucially, ask whom they want informed at work to respect their privacy. And check in periodically, but gently, don't pressure them.
The book mentions the email versus phone. Quick tip here too, which feels important for something this sensitive.
Yes, very important. For sensitive news like illness, email often allows the recipient to process the information privately and respond when they feel ready without the immediate pressure of a phone call.
Okay. What about when an employee needs to take extended leave, maybe for their own health or a family member's? As a manager, how do you handle that conversation?
You need to discuss the logistics, clearly timing, possibilities, like maybe working from home sometimes, what coverage is needed, but without overstepping personal boundaries or sounding overly sympathetic in a way that might feel patronizing or debilitating. Keep it focused on the practicalities.
And how do you communicate that absence to the rest of the team?
Be factual, maintain confidentiality about this specific health issue unless permitted otherwise. State clearly who will be covering which responsibilities during the leave.
What if other coworkers protest about the extra workload?
You need to state factually that the leave is necessary and approved, and that teamwork is required to cover the absence effectively. Frame it as supporting a colleague.
Okay. What about the devastating situation of a colleague losing a family member, say a partner or a parent dies?
Express sympathy immediately upon hearing the news. It helps to mention how you heard, just to avoid awkwardness. If you have a genuine positive memory of the person who passed, share it sincerely.
The book contrasts specific condolences with cliches, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was so heartbroken to hear about John. I'll always remember the company picnic where he told us that hilarious story about the runaway dog.
Yeah.
Is much more impactful than just my deepest condolences.
And when they eventually return to work.
Address work issues very sensitively. Ask gently about their timing and readiness for returning. If you absolutely need work-related info while they're out passwords, file locations, be incredibly sensitive. Maybe suggest a brief email exchange or ask for a specific short call time that works for them. Don't add pressure.
That nuance feels absolutely critical. And what if an employee's family sickness isn't a single event, but something ongoing that requires flexibility?
Express understanding and hope for their family member's recovery. When discussing work adjustments, focus on their commitment to completing concrete projects and meeting key deadlines, rather than trying to rigidly track hours, which can feel impossible or just add stress during a crisis. Focus on outcomes, not seat time.
Okay, now what if you are the one dealing with personal problems? Family emergency, your own health issue, something that requires flexibility from your workplace.
Communicate professionally with your boss, key colleagues, and any impacted clients. Be clear about the amount of time you anticipate needing away or needing adjustments for. Specify what tasks others might need to cover.
How much detail should you give?
Provide clear information about how you can be reached, if at all, and when you expect to be back or more fully available. Share your plans for coverage, but you don't need to go into excessive personal detail about the problem itself. The quick tip here is vital. Your coworkers are not your personal therapists. Share only the professional implications of your personal situation.
Right. And moving from personal challenges into relationship quagmires, the book's general approach here is to measure the severity of the offense and then respond proportionally.
It's a spectrum.
Right?
Right.
From maybe an awkward request for a date to persistent pestering, all the way to serious harassment, the response has to match the behavior.
Okay, so how do you address an office romance if it's genuinely creating problems or distractions for others?
The key is to focus on the professional impact, not on judging the relationship itself. Ask for discretion. Point out the effect on others.
Look, several people have mentioned feeling uncomfortable about the public displays of affection in the break room, and it's creating a bit of distraction. Or maybe, just wanted to let you know, a customer mentioned being surprised by the personal nature of your interactions during the client meeting. Keep it about the workplace effect.
Okay. What about dealing with unwanted attention or attraction directed at you from someone at work?
You need to ward off polite overtures politely, but also firmly and clearly. No ambiguity.
What would that sound like?
Thanks. I appreciate the compliment, but I make it a firm rule to keep my professional and personal lives separate. Or, thanks, but I don't think so. I don't mix professional and personal relationships. Clear and direct.
And if it's in writing, maybe from a client.
The book suggests considering blind seizing your boss or maybe HR when you reply. It creates a record while still allowing you to maintain a professional boundary directly with the client in your response. Now, boss advances or harassment, this is obviously extremely serious. The book provides phrases to use right in the moment to draw a very clear boundary.
Such as,
please remember, I'm an employee here, and our relationship is and must remain strictly professional.
and documentation here is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Essential. Document the incident immediately, precisely. Dates, times, exact words used if possible, gestures, location, any witnesses.
And then follow up.
Yes. The book strongly recommends following up with an email to the boss afterwards. This reiterates the professional boundary and, critically, creates a dated, written record of the interaction and your objection.
What would that email say?
Something like, following up on our conversation today in your office, you briefly described the inappropriate action or words. As I stated then, and perhaps have mentioned before, I need our relationship to remain strictly professional. Please respect my professional boundaries going forward. If inappropriate gifts are involved, return them with a clear statement reiterating this boundary.
Okay. What about a coworker, not your boss, but a peer who is pursuing or harassing you?
Be crystal clear and unambiguous from the very first instance. I'm flattered, but I'm not interested in a relationship outside of work. Or, I do not believe in workplace relationships, so the answer is no.
And if they don't stop?
Be increasingly firm with each instance. I've told you I'm not interested. Please stop asking. If it involves unwanted touching, do not touch me anywhere ever again. If it persists, state your clear intent to take formal action, report it to HR, involve security if necessary, and document absolutely everything. Dates, times, locations, words, actions, witnesses, everything.
A client's advances or harassment feels different because of the business relationship. How do you handle that?
You still need to set clear boundaries, but the approach might be slightly different initially. For initial unwanted attention, you can politely but firmly state company policy. No, thank you, actually. We have company policies that prohibit us from even discussing personal matters or relationships at work.
And if it escalates to clear harassment?
Be direct and firm. You must stop saying things like that immediately, or we won't be able to continue this meeting, or we won't be able to let you in the building.
Yep.
If necessary, tell the client they need to leave, speaking quietly but clearly.
Pen man.
Document the incident thoroughly and immediately. Inform all relevant internal people, your boss, maybe legal, sales management, and the company may need to decide whether to ban that client from the premises or prevent them from working with you specifically.
Okay. And finally, in this tricky area, what about handling a client's employee who is behaving badly, being rude, lewd, or disruptive when they're visiting your workplace?
Generally, you need to address this through their company's management, not directly with the employee usually. Arrange a professional meeting with the client contact, likely the employee's boss.
How do you phrase that?
Hi, client contact. We've been experiencing a recurring problem with one of your employees, employee name, during their recent visits here, and we were hoping you could help us address it. Then be specific about the behavior observed and state clearly what action you would like their company to take. Perhaps speak to the employee, assign a different employee for future visits, or ensure the behavior stops.
Okay. So for these really sensitive situations, it's a careful balance.
Yeah.
Empathy where appropriate, but always with clear boundaries. For personal issues, be professional about the work impact. For relationship issues, be unambiguous, firm when necessary, and always document serious concerns like harassment.
That nails it. And that leads us into the final major sections the book covers, the high-stakes territory of difficult financial challenges and interpersonal sabotage or conflict.
Right. Financial issues at work always feel particularly stressful. What if your team goes over budget? How do you break that news?
You need to explain why, honestly. And the book distinguishes between admitting internal mistakes objectively, like, we underestimated the cost of the required software licenses by 15%. Versus explaining external factors that were maybe beyond your control. Due to unforeseen regulatory changes that required additional testing, we incurred higher legal and compliance expenses than originally budgeted.
And you can't just state the problem, right?
No, absolutely not. Crucially, you have to follow this explanation with a clear plan. Either outline options for containing costs moving forward, or, if necessary, make a strong case against harmful cuts.
How would that sound? Arguing for more money?
Maybe. To achieve the project's intended ROI and maintain quality standards, we actually need to invest an additional dollars in testing rather than cutting corners now, which would jeopardize the final product. Make the business case.
Okay, making a clear case for the necessary path forward, even if it's more spending. What if you need unexpected funding for something else entirely?
State the need very clearly and quantify the exact amount required. Don't be vague. And provide the specific, compelling reason behind the request.
What kind of reasons?
Is it to cover an unexpected shortfall? We are projecting to be under budget by % this quarter due to reason and require amount to maintain operations. Is it to seize a valuable opportunity? The opportunity for growth in the X market is significant, but only if we can secure amount in funding within the next 2 weeks to scale up.
Or adapting to change.
Exactly. Maybe market changes. We need amount to update our core technology stack to remain competitive, or maybe even a devastating event. Following the recent fire, we urgently need amount to rebuild our key lab facilities and resume R&D. Be specific about the need and the why.
Okay, lay out the precise need and the clear rationale. Now, how do you handle the deeply unpleasant situation of suspecting or knowing an employee is stealing from the company?
Yeah, the book describes this as a situation that just stinks, and it requires extreme discretion and objectivity. You could try raising general awareness about policies and consequences, but the quick tip notes that relying on shame or decency alone often doesn't work.
Just if you're certain.
If you are certain and have evidence, you might confront the employee directly, stating the facts clearly and the consequences, or, more commonly perhaps, you report it to your boss or HR.
How do you report it?
Express your discomfort, state it's necessary, but focus strictly on the objective facts you've observed or gathered. Avoid speculation or accusation, just the facts.
And if other employees are gossiping about stolen items?
You can state clearly, I think that's a really bad idea, it's immoral and illegal, and I wouldn't want to be involved in that. The book heavily emphasizes getting your facts absolutely straight before taking any action or making any report. False accusations are devastating.
That discretion and absolute fact-checking feel crucial, given the potential severity. Okay, what about cutting off a client who just isn't paying their bills?
Frame it as a necessary business decision, not a personal attack. State the company policy clearly and calmly.
Like?
Our company policy states that we, unfortunately, cannot continue providing services to customers with outstanding bills past 90 days. You can reference their payment history or the specific policy violation factually.
Is there room for negotiation?
Maybe. The book suggests being open to making a deal, perhaps a payment plan to get caught up. And it offers a quick tip about negotiation. Maybe let the client make the first offer for a payment plan, or if their offer is too low, be prepared to demand more.
And internally? What do you say about the client?
Be discreet. Something neutral, like they're currently not in a position to continue services with us right now, and ensure you communicate clearly with your billing department about the status.
Okay. What about the flip side?
Yeah.
Your company having cash flow problems and needing to delay employee or contractor payments. That's a really, really difficult message to deliver.
It is incredibly difficult. The advice is to first express genuine personal regret that this is necessary. Then, state the bad news clearly and directly. No sugarcoating.
Explain why.
Yes, explain the reason objectively, whether it's an internal processing mistake or a genuine external factor hitting cash flow but without making excuses. Crucially, project a sense of moving forward and hope for resolution. Use do examples focusing on definite future payment dates or clear plans rather than don't examples that sound vague, uncertain, or overly apologetic without action.
And relatedly, the book reminds us to be clear and specific when asking clients for payment we are owed, while still being mindful of tone, right?
Yes. Be direct, state the amount and due date clearly, but watch the tone, keep it professional, not demanding or accusatory, especially on the first reminder.
Okay. Finally, in the finance section, pushing for a raise for yourself. How does the book frame that? Seems different from these other difficult situations.
It frames it as a purely professional business negotiation based on your merit and market value, not an emotional plea.
So preparation is key.
Absolutely. The book recommends rigorous self-assessment first. Ask yourself, do I genuinely deserve a raise based on my specific contributions and results? Are other people in truly similar roles, internally or externally, getting paid more? Does company policy actually support performance-based adjustments right now?
Use those answers to build your case.
Exactly. Then schedule a short positive meeting specifically to discuss compensation. When you actually ask, be direct, but avoid sounding pushy or entitled. Provide specific, quantifiable evidence of your value and recent results. Based on the results I've achieved over the past year, including successfully leading the X project, which resulted in Y% cost savings, and taking on Z new responsibilities, I was hoping we could discuss adjusting my compensation to reflect this contribution.
And if the answer is no?
Be prepared to ask for clear feedback on what you would need to achieve to warrant a raise in the future. Keep it professional. Okay, moving to the last major area. Sabotage and insubordination. These are really challenging interpersonal conflicts. How do you handle constant passive-aggressive whining or negativity from a colleague that drags everyone down?
Oh, that's incredibly draining for a team, isn't it?
Totally. The book's goal here is to take control and make the behavior overt and therefore addressable. Don't engage with the whining itself.
So what do you do?
State the negative action or the lack of action, objectively and measurably. We agreed in our meeting last Tuesday that the report draft would be completed and circulated by Friday afternoon. However, it wasn't delivered, which has caused a delay in the client review cycle.
Stick to the facts of the impact.
Yes, then state your clear expectations moving forward. To get back on track, you must complete the full draft plus provide a recovery plan outlining how you'll mitigate this delay by noon tomorrow. Make it concrete.
Okay. What about dealing with colleagues' gossip that's actively undermining your reputation?
Confront the individual or individuals directly. State clearly and calmly that you are aware of the gossip, that their behavior is unprofessional and unacceptable, and that it needs to stop immediately. Be direct.
What if associates are actively trying to steal your project or maybe even poach your client?
Act quickly. State the facts clearly, citing any agreements, contracts, or emails that establish your ownership or primary relationship. If it's helpful and appropriate, get the client to explicitly confirm their relationship is with you or your team. And alert relevant internal colleagues or your manager to the situation. Protect your territory.
Okay. What if it's your own company, maybe partners or another department, that you feel is being dishonest with a client? Maybe about the scope of work or the billing. That's an ethical minefield.
It is. The book suggests raising concerns internally first, perhaps by focusing on principles like fairness, realistic costings, or standard industry practice, rather than making direct accusations of lying initially.
How might that sound?
You could offer feedback on proposals or billing documents. I had a question about the hours estimated for Phase 3 here based on similar projects. This seems low. Could we review the assumptions? Or, is this billing structure standard for this type of work? I want to ensure we're being completely transparent and fair to the client. Frame it as ensuring good business practice.
Okay, raising flags based on professionalism and fairness.
Yeah.
What about external service providers who just aren't delivering what they promised in their contract?
Document the failure clearly, note the specific contract terms they haven't met, and the clear impact their failure is having on your work or project timelines or budget.
And then demand action.
Yes, demand compensation, a specific remedy, or potentially termination of the contract. The book again mentions the quick tip about negotiation. Maybe let them make the first offer for compensation, but be prepared to be firm and fair in what you demand based on the documented impact.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. How do you boost morale after key people leave the company? Maybe unexpectedly. That can really shake a team.
You need to frame the departure positively, if possible. Not minimizing the person's contribution, but highlighting the situation as an opportunity maybe for new directions, growth opportunities for remaining team members, or a chance to strengthen teamwork.
Get people involved.
Definitely. Get the team's ownership by asking for their ideas. With Sarah moving on, what are some ideas you all have for making our team or our processes even better during this transition? Infuse a sense of purpose and create clear, motivating goals for the team moving forward. And lastly, the really big one, navigating a hostile buyout. That's hugely disruptive and stressful for absolutely everyone involved.
Yeah, how do you even begin to manage the communication around that?
Break the news quickly yourself if you're in a position to, or ensure management does. Get ahead of the rumor mill. Frame it realistically, but try to focus on potential positives or continuity, if known. I wanted to let you know personally, I just learned that acquiring company name is now our parent company. While change is always an adjustment, based on what we know now, I'm not expecting elaborate operational changes initially. Manage the uncertainty.
And when people inevitably express anger or deep concern,
Acknowledge their feelings, urge patience, and reiterate known facts. Focus on potential positives if there are any credible ones. Advise them to ask HR relevant, concrete questions.
what kind of questions?
Questions about practical things like benefits continuity, pension plans, potential impacts on job security. Stick to factual inquiries. Avoid subjective questions like asking HR if they like the new management. It's not helpful.
And interacting with the new leadership.
Meet them when possible. Ask concrete questions about their vision, their policies, maybe citing examples from their past actions or other acquisitions if you know them. Show you're engaged but seeking clarity. The book's final quick tip here emphasizes keeping employees informed consistently throughout the process. It's key to reducing anxiety and uncertainty.
Wow. Okay. We have journeyed through a lot. Everything from, accidental reply all emails all the way to hostile takeovers. This book really underscores how much of professional life isn't just doing the core job, is it? It's about navigating these difficult, messy human moments.
It really does. And having these strategies, these specific phrases, it isn't about being artificial or fake. It's about being prepared, being professional, protecting yourself, and maybe your organization too.
Right.
And ultimately, increasing your ability to actually achieve the outcome you want, even when things feel chaotic. The perfect phrases are just tools, really. The power comes from that thoughtful assessment up front, using those 7 determining factors we talked about.
Absolutely. It really is a skill set that's just as important, maybe sometimes more important, than your technical expertise, isn't it? Mastering these kinds of communications feels fundamental to professional growth.
Indeed, it truly is.
The book provides so many phrases to say, doesn't it? So many scripts for these difficult moments. It's almost like it gives you language for nearly every possible bad situation at work.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, as we finish this deep dive, when is the perfect phrase? actually no phrase at all. Are there difficult situations where the most strategic, the most powerful move might simply be silence, knowing when not to speak?
That's a really powerful counterpoint. Knowing when not to engage, when to pause indefinitely, can be just as valuable, maybe more so sometimes, than knowing exactly what to say.
And thinking about that non-human expectation the book mentioned, if the workplace sometimes requires us to be, quote, professional, discreet, and overall non-human, what's the long-term cost? What's the cost to us as individuals when genuine human emotions or personal tragedies inevitably flare up, as the book puts it? How do we balance that professional expectation with being authentic and just maintaining our own well-being?
That's a very important reflection. Finding that balance is key.
Definitely something to keep in mind as you navigate your own workplace minefields.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. Stay tuned for the next one, where we'll dive into another topic designed to transform your life, bit by bit, into the best version of you. This is Wired to Win with Layan. See you next time.